So often when people look at rotational values, there's three different perspectives we can take. The first one is the simplest one, the amount. So how much has that player rotated? The second one is looking more at timing. When does the rotation take place? For example, when does the pelvis start to rotate back towards target in the golf swing? And the last one, which many people don't really look at, is how is that rotational number being created? So how is that value actually being created? And when we're looking at the chest rotation like we are with these two players, we've also involved the head sway value. So when players sometimes have restrictions or maybe imbalances in the upper section, so towards shoulders, neck, scap area, sometimes instead of rotation, we get reorientation. So we simply get the whole segment being pushed to a different location, and that can create the rotational value. However, it's not really done, let's say, in the most efficient manner or capacity, and can create issues downstream in the golf swing. So we've got our two players here, our club golfer on the left, we've got the head sway value and the thoracic rotation value. Same with the player on the right, a more elite player. So let's look at what they do early on. Now the player on the left is already 7 degrees rotated open with the chest. So let's take a value of 30 degrees. So let's go to 23 on the way back with this player on the left hand side. So when they hit 23 degrees of rotation, how much is that head swayed to create that? So we get over 5.5 centimeters. So when we're looking at that, nearly kind of getting up, let's say just above 2 inches of movement to create that 23 degrees value. Now there's other things at play, obviously, but we're just paying attention, really the relationship between these two values for this episode. So on the right hand side here with our pro player, let's again work them. Now they're starting at 0 degrees rotation in the chest. So let's again work that to about 30 degrees in terms of the amount that they've rotated. And to get to that point, they've only really moved about 3.2 centimeters. So less movement, less sway of the head early to create the rotational value. Now, as we look at these two players, you'll see the player on the right has rotated more in terms of where they are in space, but the amount, that's what we're really more referring to, is the amount they've rotated. Both players have rotated that chest 30 degrees from where they started. So as we work further into that backswing on the right hand side, now we start to see that head sway value with the elite player nearly go down slightly as they work into that top of backswing position. So now everything's starting to actually move back towards target, but still that rotational value still going up to the top of the backswing position. And then on the left hand side, let's check out that head sway value increasing. So as the player starts adding more rotation, especially as we get to the top of the backswing here, more rotation being added, that number nearly getting up to 7 centimeters, just above 7 centimeters of sway. So really, to create that value, we look at these two players, 93 degrees rotation on the left hand side, 71 on the right hand side. But look at the head sway differential. The player on the left hand side has swayed, has laterally shifted that head to create that thoracic or that chest rotation value. So you can argue whether that's efficient or not, that's a different discussion. But how the players created these two motions, you would look at the player on the right and go, well, they haven't really rotated enough. They've only rotated 71 degrees. It should be 90, etc. However, when you look at it, they've rotated in a much more efficient capacity, so the movement is a lot more efficient than the player on the left-hand side who's created the sought-after value, but has done it through more reorientation of that head sway movement to allow that chest to move through that 93-degree value. So when you're looking at rotation, obviously the first way or the first perspective, the easiest, is purely the volume, the amount. Also look at the timing. When does it happen? When does it occur? But probably the most important one that really is not looked at is how has the player actually created that value? Have they done it through efficient, nice relative motion through the system, spiraling up through the system, or have they simply moved and shifted a segment out of the way to create that said value?